Hey everyone, so this is going to be part two of Do You Have Wounded Thinking? And really, it's my goal to help you to be able to counter the hurts and the negative thoughts you may have on, different situations, potentially uh, hurtful issues that you have dealt with in your life. People may say, certain things that may hurt you. And it could be like our perception, because if, we have a lifetime of dealing with the hurts and living out of our hurts, then we see things and we hear things through that wounded perspective. And so, really, I want to help you get to that place that, like me, when you come to a potentially hurtful experience and you can counter it with the truth of who you are in God. So I want to try to be able to relay this message clearly for you to understand and stuff. And so it's not going to be too long, but hopefully I will be able to deliver the message. But so a lot of our hurts begin as children. I think that's when we receive hurts as kids, we start then behaving in a hurtful kind of way. Whether we try to defend ourselves, we try to, if we have abusive parents, we do what we can not to get hurt by them. So we watch what we say, while we watch what we do. And so, what does that look like as we grow? Do we live on the defensive? So, I want to try to give examples from my own life that maybe, you can think about your own life while I'm speaking, and how you can apply this message to your own life. So if you have been, watching my messages, you know that I had stated that my father was an alcoholic. His brothers and his sister were alcoholics. So my father can be, verbally abusive. He was emotionally abusive, and he could be physically abusive. And, I'm still trying to piece together everything from my life and how it has formed me into the person I am today. But I don't want to stop there. I want to be able to root this issues out and deal with them, with healing. So my father was abusive in those ways. And so from that abuse, I started living in a certain way. Like, for example, I didn't have any self confidence because my father used to trash me. You stated different things about me that, you know, were hurtful. And so I started living out of them. So, like one day he's sitting with his friend drinking, and I'm off to see my uncle who lived in the same community. And so as I passed my father, he said, "Where are you going, you fat piece of sh?" So with what he had said, it hurt me because he was trashing who I was. And life wasn't spoken to me at that time in which it should have been. So not only did I deal with the effects of what he had said, but also his actions and, how it hurt me emotionally. I mean, he wasn't emotionally present in my life. I mean, he was physically present, but he wasn't emotionally. He wasn't there for me growing up. And, eventually understanding comes in and you wonder why a person is the way they are. And when you have understanding in place, then, you know, you give grace to them and you can understand where they are coming from and why they behaved as they did. So I also did deal with sexual abuse. So what are the effects of a sexual abuse on somebody? Well, I mean, the only thing I can think of, and there's probably more, was that I was uncomfortable around other guys. I remember going to a Catholic camp that my sister and her ex husband, sent me to. And I met a lot of great people there. I had a really good time. And the only thing is all the guys showered naked. And that wouldn't be a big thing for a lot of guys, but for me, it was hard. I didn't want to get undressed around any other guys, but I had to do it. And so I ended up doing it. And so that was a real challenge. So that could be the effect of, sexual abuse, to where you're uncomfortable around other guys. So I had to learn to deal with that, being uncomfortable. So my question to you is, how have you been hurt growing up? What hurts did you go through as a child? And what effects did those hurts bring you? Um, I had already stated about the whole, sexual abuse issue. And with my dad's abuse, I lacked self confidence and I felt rejected. Um, we behave in certain ways in certain situations. Uh, in different situations, someone can say something to you that could be negative. And if you have had experience growing up as, being hurt by somebody or your family members, you know, what people can say to you can hurt you. And it could trigger something in you in which you then would react out of that place of hurt. And, the person that may have said or did something to you, I mean, it could be unintentional, but you're seeing things through a negative lens. You're seeing things through a lens of hurt. So, another question is, how often do you behave through your hurts rather in a way that reflects healing? Now, we're going to, behave in a way that doesn't reflect healing because we don't know anything about healing. If we had those options for us, if we could be healed at, you know, the very moment, I'm sure that we would go for it. But with a lot of people, I think that they don't know that they are wounded. There could be some that are like that. There could be some that know that they are wounded, but don't know how to, receive the healing necessary. I mean, there could be, many reasons why. But if we were hurt as kids, we're going to grow up, behaving a certain way because that's all that we know. So, we have options that are afforded to us. And one of those is therapy. And, with going into psychotherapy like I have, it has helped me to be able to counter the hurts of my own past. So I now have this option as a way of healing from my past issues. So, just to repeat that question, how often do you behave through your hurts rather in a way that reflects healing? And, you know, we're going to behave in the way of hurt because that's all that we know. I mean, if you had a lifetime of feeling rejected, you're going to continue walking in that place of rejection. And I did that. I dealt with a lot of rejection. I dealt with a lot of self-worth issues growing up. So as I want to in this video is get you to that place to where you can counter the hurts in your own life. And I want to give examples in my own life so that you can, think, okay, what about my own life? You know, in what way am I walking in a way that is not reflective of healing? but I'm walking in a way still that is hurt. So if I can give you tips on how to counter, then I really want to do that. So are you able to stop yourselves at the moment and look at the situation objectively, at the hurtful situations? I mean, somebody saying something negative to you, or somebody doing something. I mean, you could react from hurt. Well, can you stop yourself and come up with possible, what is that word I'm looking for? Um, Other possible solutions other than from that place of hurt. Um, like I had said before, people will say and do things that could trigger the hurtful past in your heart. Um, since my dad tore me down, I didn't have any self confidence. So, for example, when I was on dating sites or chatting with different people, they would ask for my picture and I would send my picture to them. And once I sent it to them, there wasn't a response for a good amount of time. So automatically, my response to that would be, okay, I'm deleting this picture because obviously they don't find me attractive. So that was my solution to a situation. I was reacting out of that place of hurt rather than a place of healing. Um, other conversations I've had about my job, people talk about investing and trading, which could have been scammers. But I would talk about what I did. And, I've had people tell me, oh, is this all you're going to do? Or, how much money you make and stuff like that. So it would seem like they diminished my job and what I did. And so it got me to the point to where I just didn't even want to share what I did with anyone because they're going to trash me. And then, my whole living situation, I work hard in my job and I rent a room. I mean, that could receive a lot of disapproval from girls in the United States or probably around the world. And so that you give them information about what you're doing and where you live, and they could, trash you, say, well, you need to get better. So it could, I could react from my place of hurt. Well, I am, I'm, I'm feeling like I am lower than them. So they deserve better than me. That would be my reaction to that. Now, if you are a Christian, you are God's child. You are a co-heir. You deserve care, respect, and honor. And this is what you would use to counter, you know, the lies that you have believed about yourself. If you were trashed your entire life and you thought of yourself as nothing, well, this is the truths that you need to counter those lies. So whenever you're encountering a situation and you have that uh, potential hurt that's coming up, well, you need at that moment to counter that. Well, these people are making me feel this way, so this is who I am in God. So immediately you counter those lies with the truth. Now, given examples of what I already did, I mean, sharing my picture, and there wasn't a response. Instead of me just deleting the picture that I sent them, I could have just come against it and said, well, even if I'm unattractive to that person, that doesn't mean that I'm unattractive to everyone. So that could have been a way I could have countered that lie. And example two, just because my job doesn't reflect ambition in the eyes of many, doesn't diminish my worth as a child of God and as a son. Example three, my living situation. Just because it may be like this now doesn't mean it's going to be like this forever. I would need to look at the situation from God's perspective. Okay, where I'm living now doesn't mean that it's going to be like this forever. God has a plan for my life and God has good in store for me. And where I'm living right now is only a temporary issue. You know, God has so much planned. So I counter those lies with these truths. So in your own life, whatever situations that you have dealt with and the hurt that you have dealt with, you know, coming up with the the truth of who you are can counter even those lies that you believed about yourself growing up. So I don't know about your past. I don't know about what you've been through in your life. So, in what way can you counter those lies that you believed about yourself with the truth? So, I pray that this video has given you somewhat of tools in which you can counter those lies with who you are in God. So, I pray this video blessed you.